Hey guys, thanks for tuning back in. Like I said, this is part 3 of my collection room tour. We're going to jump right into it and pick up where we left off. So we'll spin this thing around and let's get going. Sorry about that. Let's get going with the collection room, part 3. All right, we left off right here with some board games that I talked about, and we are going to move into these few games here. When I was a kid, well, not just when I was a kid, I mean now, I loved bowling as a kid. I mean, I was like bowling all the time, like, you know, playing with plastic bowling pins and watching the professional bowlers tour on TV. I was in a bunch of, youth leagues as a kid. I really stopped bowling recently, like a few years ago, because I just ran out of time. But, when I was a kid, I would love anything toy related to bowling. And this was something that I had as a kid. It's actually from the 70s, I think, but it's spare time bowling. Back then, back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, they were coming out with these tabletop dice games for all kinds of sports, baseball and football. I mean, you name it. And of course, they came out with bowling. Object of the game, you have 10 dice. The dice have, pins on them and opens and spares, and you would roll the dice. And, if you happen to get lucky and roll 10 dice that didn't have any drawings on them, then that was a strike. If you rolled the dice and you had 3 pins left, that was, you had to get a spare. It had score sheets, you kept score. It was kind of like Yahtzee bowling. Fun stuff. I actually like it, and you could play it today if you wanted to. Bed Bugs, another late 80s classic. Think, Operation. The game board was basically a bed. You had these colored tongs, and there were these colored bed bugs that you would, set on the bed game board, and had batteries. You turn it on, the whole thing vibrated, the bugs jumped up and down, and you would, you'd have a color, and you had your colored tongs, and you would have to collect the colored bugs that matched your colored tongs. So if you had green tongs, you'd get the green bugs as they hopped all around this vibrating bed. Neat concept, fun, I guess, when I was a kid. Underneath that is one of those girl toys that I talked about earlier, fashion plates, some basic art game, you'd draw with colored pencils, and you'd, design clothes and make who cares? It's fashion plates, but it was from the, lovely childhood of mine, so I own it. Okay, moving along. As you've seen in other videos, this is the Dukes of Hazzard shelf and the Karate Kid shelf, but we're coming down to shelf number 3, and that is 3 games that nobody ever played. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I guess people played them. 3 games that I never played. I was never a smart enough kid to figure out how to play these games, but these are those games that, probably are awesome today and probably hold up today, but I can't figure out how to play them. And they do say age 10 to adult, which is a little insulting to me because I still can't figure out how to play them. But Stratego, Castle Risk, and your Standard Risk, games of world domination. Gotcha, which is kind of like one of those I forgot this existed games. This is from 87. Gotcha from Milton Bradley is one of those games that I had as a kid. That's why I own it today. Kind of like a hot potato type game. Maybe nobody knows what that even means, but basically you had this ball and chain, and you would handcuff yourself. You'd play with other people. You'd handcuff yourself to this ticking ball. You would push down the police officer, plastic police officer, and when you pushed him down, a timer started, and you would have your handcuff on, and you'd have to roll the dice. And if you rolled the 2 dice and you got 2 keys, then you would unlock your handcuff and pass it to the person sitting next to you. as the timer continues, and they would have to roll the dice and try to free themselves as well until that Keystone Cop timer went off and he popped up, and you were caught. If you were caught with the handcuffs on when the police officer popped up, you were out and eliminated. Gotcha. Pretty fun stuff. It took me a while to find this one on eBay, and when I did, it was $7. So it's not, just because things are rare doesn't mean they're expensive. I could never find it, and when I did, like I said, it was $7. So moving down to a little collection of lunch pails. I love these things. I will continue to buy them. But when I go to flea markets and toy shows, people have them for ridiculous prices, $40, $50 and up for lunch pails. All of these were between $5 and $8 or $5 and $10, and that's about all that I'm going to pay for a lunch pail. So here's what I've got. Barbie and the Rockers. Told you, girl stuff. I'm okay with that. I got actually 2 Barbie lunch pails. There's another one behind there. Garfield, Pound Puppies, Cabbage Patch Kids, a nice metal He-Man lunch pail, a random E.T. thermos, another Barbie's one, the classic G.I. Joe. Looks like Sergeant Slaughter there. DuckTales and Brave Star. I loved these things. I love them now. Actually, this goes up here. I love them now. And they just, again, represent such a simpler time when, kids would bring their lunches to school in these, fun and exciting representations of what you were into at the time. I remember being such a wrestling fan that I had a couple of Hulk Hogan WWF lunch boxes, which are over there in another part of the room, which I'll show you. But this was so cool. When you walked into the lunchroom, people knew what you were into. People knew if you were into G.I. Joe. They knew if you were a He-Man fan. And what a great conversation starter. What a great way to make friends. Hey, you've got a He-Man lunch pail. I love He-Man. I've got like 20 figures. We should be friends. Totally different time. Again, a great capture and representation of the 80s were these awesome character lunch boxes. All right, moving on. All right, so this is just another shelf along the line of shelves. Mad Scientist, late 80s. I don't know what it was. I remember it. I had it. I definitely had it, but I don't know if it was like a play set or like a science, set, but its biggest component was glop. Glowing glop. So at the time, in that late 80s, slime was all the rage. You'd get these vats of snotty, jello-y slime, and those came with a lot of toys back then. And this was one of them, the Mad Scientist glowing glop. I've actually got 2, if you can see, of the same kind. I don't know how that happened. I think 2 came in one eBay lot, and I just bought them, and they're the exact same. That Garfield lunch pail that we're staring at, that has a special story. That's why it's not with the rest of the lunch pails. There's a picture of me from like 1985 on my first day of school, which was maybe 2nd grade. And I'm standing there posing, and I've got my Crayola crayon book bag, and I've got this Garfield lunch pail, this exact one. So, a few Christmases ago, my wife, went through the photos and saw this and hunted it down on eBay and got it back for me. So, not that this is the actual lunch pail, but this is the lunch pail that I had in 2nd grade. Pretty cool stuff. Strolling, bowling, and bumbling boxing. I'll show you what these are at another time, but these are pretty cool. Definitely early 80s, 82 or so. Kind of the wind-up toy craze. I don't know if it was a craze, but wind-up toy, the popular wind-ups of the early 80s. you'd wind up this bowling ball character. Remember, I told you I liked bowling. You'd wind up this bowling ball character. He'd trot down the aisle and knock down these pins, strolling bowling. Same concept for bumbling boxing, actually. You'd wind up two guys, and they would basically run into each other. Their feet would move. I guess their hands would move up and down. And if one of them fell over, that was considered a knockout. So bumbling boxing, I will definitely pull these out and review them for you and show you exactly the kind of fun we had in the 80s. Got a pound puppy here. This is like, I forget what they're called. That's not like the official, it's an official pound puppy, but I think they had like pound puppy puppies back then. So that's a smaller pound puppy. Which were pretty cool, obviously, back in the day. I think this is like a mini pound puppy. I've got a Verbot robot. I only have this because I had it. That's the only reason that when I saw this on eBay, I said, well, I have to have that because I had it. I think it's kind of like a Sears thing. I mean, it's a Radio Shack thing. Robots in the early 80s were, pretty popular. So this thing would move within a remote control, and you could have it lift up its arms and, grab stuff and carry stuff. And it was programmable. It was programmable to stop and move. So that's about all it was programmable to do. But Verbot was pretty cool. Actually, it was voice commanded. So you could, yell at it and tell it what to do, and it would move or stop. My friends Teddy Ruxpin and Grubby, staples of the 80s. Any 80s collection is incomplete without a Teddy Ruxpin and a Grubby. I never had these guys. I think my sister had Teddy Ruxpin. Pretty cool, for the time. You'd put a cassette tape in, and came with a book, a storybook, and Teddy Ruxpin would come to life and play the cassette tape. He would read along to the story as you read along in the book. I don't know, kind of like a 80s Furby type concept. This guy hiding back here, Sylvester Stallone, 16-inch figure from Over the Top. Got that a long time ago off eBay. They have smaller, 6 or 8-inch figures from Over the Top that seem to go for a lot for some reason. But I actually like this movie. I told you earlier I was a big Sylvester Stallone fan. I love Over the Top. I think it's such a fun movie. So that's the 16-inch Over the Top Sylvester Stallone figure. Made arm wrestling popular. Crisscross Crash, which the only reason I own that is because I once had it. This is a very late 70s, very early 80s Hot Wheels, Matchbox set, which were all the rage in that generation, 70s and 80s. Hot Wheels were taking off like crazy, not just the cars, but the play sets that came along with them. So Crisscross Crash was pretty fun. So we'll move down a little bit. Here's, I don't know if he's the smaller guy's father, but here's a full-size pound puppy that I actually recently just picked up from a Savers for a couple of bucks, but I made sure to check the tag, and it was, definitely a 80s version. I'm pretty sure that two different, the pound puppies have definitely come back in the last couple of years, but I think they're from a different company. I want to say Hasbro is making them, and back in the day, Play School was making them. I could be totally wrong about that. Moving along to some random stuff, just some board games. Muppet Babies Match Game, a couple of Cabbage Patch Kids games. I love Cabbage Patch Kids, guys. I mean, come on. I mean, what other toy in the 80s kicked off such a craze? To me, Cabbage Patch Kids was the beginning of the toy craze. Maybe people were going nuts for Star Wars stuff, I don't know, but I'm guessing that toys were available to everybody back then. But the Cabbage Patch Kids really started this craze where people were actually getting into, fights over Cabbage Patch Kids. So I like them. And I've got a couple that I'll show you later. A couple other board games, Mystery Mansion, Clue, Chutes and Ladders, Go to the Head of the Class, Leverage. Moving along, a couple of random stuff, Pound Puppies Jigsaw Puzzle, a Cabbage Patch Kids Jigsaw Puzzle, a He-Man paint by number set, which has long dried up and withered away, Razzle, numbers or letters, game where you would, sort of, I don't know, you'd had these, who cares? I threw the Rocky title fight ring in there. Light Bright, a beautiful classic 80s toy. Light Bright, using your creativity to make pictures that were already created for you. You just had to stick colored pegs. It was basically a paint by number set. So kids pretended to be artists, but they weren't. A couple of other board games. This is really kind of like the shelf of random stuff. Rubik's Race, Rubik's Cube obviously was a massive 80s hit, and there were lots of variants and offshoots of the Rubik's Cube, and Rubik's Race was one of them, a board game, a fun little, not a board game, but like a puzzle game. You'd play against your opponent. You would get a puzzle that you had to recreate in your little game board area while your opponent tried to recreate it in their little game board area, and it was a race to see who could complete it first. Just a random People magazine game, from the 80s. Again, I told you, random stuff. Chipmunks Curtain Call Theater. I don't have any other Chipmunk stuff. This was like, actually my kid has this up in his room right now. And the box, he had the box too, and the box randomly wound up back in my room earlier. This was like one of those pickups that I really didn't know why I was picking up. I went to an auction several years ago when this room was just in its infant stages, and I didn't like anything at the toy auction. I didn't need anything or want anything, and I felt like I had to get something. So I bid on this Chipmunks Curtain Call Theater. It doesn't have any of its parts. It's really just bare bones. It's kind of junk. I have no love for it. I gave it to my kid, and he uses it as a base for some of his Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, yeah. Mr. Mouth, what a wonderful memory. What a wonderful late 70s, early 80s game. It's definitely come out in other decades. It was Frog. They replaced the Mouth character with a frog. But Mr. Mouth, so fun. I don't know if you can see there, but it had like 4 arms and hands attached to the end of the arms. You would put chips in the hand. You would flip the hand kind of like Tiddlywinks, and you would try to get it in the mouth of the Mr. Mouth as he spun around the board, opening and closing his mouth. You would try to get the chips into his mouth as he passed you. So fun, just great. Just great, simple 80s fun. Girl Talk, one of those silly girl games that I told you I had no problem collecting. I think Girl Talk was, about phone calls and dating different boys. Stuff girls do, right? Hungry Hungry Hippo. To me, Hungry Hungry Hippos and Mr. Mouth are pretty much in the same category as staple board games of the 80s. Hungry Hungry Hippo, if you don't know, then you're not from this planet, but you controlled one of 4 different hippos by banging on this lever ferociously, and their mouths would open and extend, and you would scoop up marbles that were placed all over the board, and the person with the most marbles would win. But you know what? Again, this is one of those games that drove parents and grandparents absolutely insane, because you had 4 lunatic children smashing on the levers, and it made a whole lot of noise. But no 80s toy collection is complete without it. Crayola Caddy. This one might not be too familiar to people. I probably had... This was like a go-to gift in the 80s. I probably had 4 of these and got one for each Christmas. When your mom or dad had no idea what to get you for Christmas, they would grab a Crayola caddy. And like I said, I had several of these, but when I went looking for it, it wasn't as easy to find as I thought it would be. This is a beautiful memory for me, Crayola caddy. Like I said, really, the memory is because I got one for every Christmas, it seemed. But it was a caddy. It's still in here. I'll show you. It's a caddy, right? It's a caddy that spins. It's not going to spin. It's in the box. And you would put your, it had space for your markers. It had spaces all around here for your crayons. It came with some watercolors. It came with some oil colors. It came with, some paintbrushes. And this was your art station. This was your Crayola crayon marker paint art station. And, you'd put it on your desk in your room. And when you wanted to color or draw some awesome pictures like this kid is obviously having a great time doing, you would go right to your Crayola caddy. And it had every supply that a budding artist will ever need. Why did I get 4 of them? Well, because the watercolors would dry up and die. The oil colors would get spilled all over the rug. You break the crayons within about 5 minutes after using them, and the markers would dry up when you left the caps off. So I had to have another one, so my parents would give me one every year. I had about 4 of these, like I said. But I absolutely, that's actually one of the, more special items in my collection. Okay, let's see. Let's do a quick little review of this shelf here, and then I'll come back for part 4. This is my American Gladiators collection. Let me move this guy's foot out of the way. American Gladiators, man, if there is a DVD set that needs to come out, if there's a show that needs to get released in season format, it's American Gladiators. I absolutely loved this show as a kid. I was a super huge wrestling fan growing up, and my Saturdays were pretty much booked from 7 a.m. until probably 1 p.m. Cartoons all morning, WWF wrestling at noon, and then right after wrestling was the American Gladiators, and just absolutely loved this show. They came out with a figure line like everything else on the planet does, and so this is pretty much a complete, collection of play sets. The figures are tiny. You can kind of see. They all look the same. They've all got, sort of the same pose. This is actually a gladiator named Laser. And these are so it came with gladiator figures, and it came with 2 competitors, not just red outfit competitor and blue outfit competitor, but Caucasian competitor versus a black competitor. You got the battle of the races during American Gladiator as well. Came out with pretty cool play sets, actually, and I can do I can't really do a review of this because not all these play sets are complete, which is something that I do when I collect stuff. I'm not really interested in something entirely complete because I'm probably not going to play with it, but so I like the boxes. I like the artwork, so a lot of times I'll get a set that's has just a few pieces of the game, but as long as the box looks good, I'm buying it. So I've got 4 of the 5 play sets that were released, and I can go through those. Right there you can see the joust play set. If you were, sorry about that, guys. If you watched American Gladiators and you know what joust is, 2 guys up on a platform beating the hell out of each other with foam joust sticks, and so if the toys are going to come out, we're going to definitely need a joust play set. I've got the loose figures. I've got some carded figures. This is a very easy set to complete. These figures are giveaways. Nothing in this. This whole entire shelf probably cost me $50. These toys are just not well liked. They're not valuable at all monetarily to anybody. So they're very easy pickups on eBay or wherever else. Of course, you do have some people that are, thinking that they've got something, priceless on their hands, but don't pay any more than $5, $5 to $10 for a carded Gladiator figure. Obviously loose ones are a couple of bucks, and I wouldn't pay any more than $20 for a play set. So that's the American Gladiator shelf. I'll spin back around here with you. So that's part 3 of my room tour. We've got a lot to go. We've got more shelves of goodness. We've got some, media shelves, DVDs and VHS tapes and TV box sets to go. We've got my 399. I know I said 400 in another video, but I looked and I've got 399 NES games. We can go through that. And then at the very end, we'll go through my wrestling, the WWF LJN Wrestling Superstars collection, which is my most cherished piece of my collection, and more importantly, most cherished memories. So that will deserve its own little series of videos. So we'll do that last. But again, hope you're enjoying my content. Once we're done with collection room stuff, we'll just be doing more pickups. We'll be doing more unboxings as I get stuff. I'll definitely be looking for more toys to add and show you. Like I said, we'll be doing some movie nights. We'll be doing some cooking. I'll be doing some food reviews. More beer drinking is in my future. And hopefully we'll just have a lot of fun together. If you're watching, let me know. Like I said, subscribe. Let me know who you are. And keep checking out. I'm going to do this often, maybe once every couple days. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining the 80s Revolution. See you next time.